Looking backwards, it sounds like you intentionally, well, you said it, you intentionally delayed going to institutions to get, venture capital funding. Do you think do you stand by that? I mean, it sounds like you'll obviously say yes, but could you have grown faster if you had taken more institutional venture funding earlier? Or do you feel like it was the best thing you did, which was delaying it?
Yeah, it's hard because I haven't kind of seen both, but our first institutional investor was Madrona Venture Group in Seattle, and they're fantastic. They have a great reputation, and we've certainly experienced that. They've been a fantastic partner and have been able to add value and help in every way and beyond. You'd hope an investor can be a good partner. And so, yeah, I think, the type of support and the type of partnership that we get from them, do I think we would have benefited from it early on? Yeah, absolutely. It's always been a great partner. But I don't think anything, investors can't replicate, no investor can really replicate, truly, help you through, just the nuances of really establishing product market fit. It just has to be time and obsession with your customer and listening to them and keep on whittling away. And I'm sure that there are, tips and tricks to kind of accelerate that, introductions that can be made, et cetera. But, yeah, I think I'd still stand by that advice. Figure out your product market fit with people that are really strategic and more pure play, focused on solving those kind of product problems and customer problems. And then when you want to scale partner, find someone who does that well.
How did you, well, firstly, when did you know you had product market fit? Was there a moment where you were no longer questioning? It was clear that this is product market fit?
Yeah, I think it was when we were able to charge for our product, because we spent a long year in kind of beta where we had, I think, a great value prop that we could get people to sign up for betas, pilots, they call them in this industry. And they'd pilot our solution on a few of their properties, but we wouldn't, they wouldn't expand to the rest of their properties, or we'd get fired or something like that. And I think it's we knew our message was right on, but there was a lot to figure out in terms of kind of that. When I say product market fit, I mean really how this, how someone in a leasing office, how they log in, how they engage with the platform, how that integrates with the chaos of systems that, that they're used to working with, and into the kind of chaos of their lives. And I think, once we figured that out, then, they're okay, cool. This is your product matches the promise that you kind of are pitching. And, we'll pay for this now. And so, yeah, I mean, I could definitely get more specific to moments within the product or product, specific product functionality that I felt unlocked that quote unquote product market fit. But I do think it's getting someone to pay you, and what that check represents, it's trust. It is product market fit. It says okay, this is worth it for me. You're solving a problem that I see value in paying for this subscription.
I'm so glad to hear you talk about this, because prop tech has many nuances versus other categories. And I think one of the most important aspects of prop tech is distribution strategy. You could have an amazing product. You could really solve a pain point for the user, but the user isn't necessarily the customer and the person making that buying decision, right? And until you understand the workflow of the organization you're selling to, you're not going to get those lucrative portfolio-wide, adoption or rollouts. You're going to be a single pilot, and you won't gain adoption. What if you talk about the distribution side for a moment? What have been some of the learnings, and what advice could you share with other founders who might be listening to this, going for that holy grail of portfolio-wide adoption?
Yeah. I mean, I think, you could speak generically in terms of, if you think of traditional sales qualification criteria, like a BANT framework, budget, authority, needs, timing, right? And, you'd think of the A, authority. And I think that, within, companies that focus on multifamily, there's a lot of stakeholders, like you said, people that might be using your technology throughout a multifamily, like a property management company. But the authority, someone who really owns the budget, might be somewhat removed from the person who's using your software on a day-to-day. So I'll give you an example, like Knock, we're a CRM, like the core user of our software is, a leasing team, property manager, people that are working on site, or in kind of centralized offices if they're doing more centralized leasing efforts. Regional managers and marketing directors of marketing or regional vice presidents, they're looking at the analytics, trying to understand cost per lease by source, or which leasing teams are doing a good job on their follow-ups or engagement, which ones aren't kind of paying attention to those operational metrics. But the budget might be owned by an asset manager who works in HQ and really doesn't, looks at financial statements, but, isn't really truly operating I think it's really just being laser focused on finding out who the true economic buyer is. And like that information can often be obfuscated, from somebody selling a product, because, everyone you're talking to is going to tell you that they're the kind of the economic buyer, the influencer. But it's just not the case. And so, just being really, I don't want to say like skeptical, curious, like to find out who truly controls kind of the purse strings, because that's the person you need to communicate value to. And obviously, if you can't demonstrate and communicate value to that person, then you're not going to have a successful outcome. So I recall in our journey, a lot of, early conversations where we had, huge champions for our service among, the leasing team and the regionals and the marketing team and the ops team. But we hadn't, I remember, we hadn't yet figured out how to communicate. Like we'd figured out how to communicate value to all of them, but we had kind of yet to, translate that message and that value and that, bottle up that enthusiasm for our product in a way that made sense to like an owner or an asset manager. And I do think that, that's sort of a different moment for us. Like there's the product market fit moment where you get someone to pay you, but then it's figuring out how to translate that, that trust and that, understanding of value to the person who's capable of making like a much bigger investment decision. So you kind of unlock that portfolio wide rollout. And I'd say that was sort of like another seminal moment for us in kind of like our journey and kind of helping us get to where we are today.
A lot of folks try to approach this with a very, heavy sales approach, which is going to guarantee to backfire on you. I don't know. Do you agree? I would probably call this part where you're trying to get distribution more business development, where you're trying to structure the deal, you're trying to figure out the internal politics, creating materials, figuring out, all these, the BANT framework you talked about, right? Budgets, authority, needs, and timing. What role is it that you would describe that, helping grease the wheel and get the product distributed out?
Yeah, I think, solutions engineering, right? Like that's a big one. I think there's kind of that line between, inviting, if you're a sales, like an AE, and you invite a solutions engineer to join a demo, they're going to be talking about the product, maybe leading the product demo, answering questions, technical questions about the product. But like, our team of solutions engineers, like they also own our value calculator tools. And so when, they'll work with our AEs and our customers, when we're putting together proposals to kind of like, it's actually like quite a detailed document, to really show and demonstrate like, hey, here's exactly the value you can expect. Here's the payback period. Here's kind of like the value, we're going to be able to create for you. Which, fortunately, we're a company that can demonstrate our returns to our customers. There's a lot of companies that aren't, so fortunate as to have something that like truly has like an ROI, like increases performance. So we're lucky in that regard, but, I don't know. I think that to answer your question, it's probably something like a solutions engineer, or at least our version of it.
And how did you guys think about your customer persona types, or the core segments you're going after? Because there's a pyramid, right? At the very top, you've got your large enterprise style contracts and customers, and at the very bottom, you've got your independent or mom and pop run development firms, or even property management firms. Where do you start with, and what is the focus for you now? We've got a lot of listeners, especially from the real estate industry. What would be the ideal type of customer for you?
So definitely, institutional multifamily operators. I'd say large multifamily operators. Like a small knock customer is 1,000 units, and a big knock customer is like we serve over half of the NMHC top 50, owners and managers. I think you hear different numbers all the time, but the one I heard most recently was like there's now 60 million rental units in the United States. And I think that 15 or 20 of those would be considered the real large, 200 plus unit type complexes. And we focus on that asset type and the types of owners and operators of large multifamily assets. So,
did you start there as well?
Say that again?
Did you start right at the top of that pyramid when you started, or did you have to go did you find segments that were easy to approach and work with, or did you go straight for the top?
It's a great question. We were thinking everybody, because I think from a rent, again, when we started, we thought about the problem set from a renter's perspective, right? Like, my wife and I were actually looking for a new place to live right now, which has been kind of, one, it still sucks years later. But so I guess we haven't, totally licked the problem yet, but it's funny because as a renter, prospective renter, I'm not totally, I'm not opposed to it could be a big building I want to live in, or a small building, or it could be a single family home. Like, I'm kind of looking for two beds, 2 baths, like 1,500 square feet, and like a night, in a location that I like. Like, I'm not totally picky on the asset type. Now, I know that some people, care a lot, or they're optimizing as a renter for a particular asset type. But I still believe that most renters, are less concerned about how many floors the building that they live in has. They're more interested about like the unit amenities or the unit qualities. And so sorry for the long story here, but when we started, we were really thinking from a renter's perspective and feeling like, these problems exist regardless of the asset type. So let's go build solutions for the companies that operate any of these asset types. And so we had a ton of customers that early on, like I'd say the majority of our customers in our first year were what we'd call like single family property managers. So they're like focusing on a lot of single family home rentals or duplexes, triplexes, offsite managed properties, smaller properties. And they were a blast to work with, but they have very different needs than a larger multifamily operation. And like the example, and I actually shared this earlier during an onboarding call with some new hires. Like if you've got, we had a feature early on where when a manager rented a unit, they could click deactivate the unit. And when you clicked deactivate the unit, this little pop-up would come up and it would say, 25 people have toured this and 56 people have expressed interest. Would you like to let them know that it's no longer available? And you could type a little message and click send, and it would send a text and an email, kind of a personalized to all of those folks. And the people that operated single family residential or like offsite managed residential multifamily, kind of the longer tail of the market, they loved that feature. It was like the best feature in the world for them, because they're like, I don't have any other inventory. I rented that single family home, or I rented that one condo unit in the building, or it's a triplex and there's only one unit available. I don't have similar inventory. So I would love to just let all 50 of those folks know that it's no longer available. But then the multifamily operator, they would call us and say, hey, like deactivate that feature or hide that from my team, because if I catch them notifying 50 prospective renters that that a particular unit isn't available anymore, I'm gonna I don't know who's gonna get fired first, you or the leasing agent, because in a 200 unit property, there's always something available, right? Like I might not have a 1-bedroom available now, but like I've got 3 lease expirations coming up in the next 6 weeks. And I want to like keep that pipeline engaged and warm. And so just like, it's a long story, but I think it's so critical for people who are thinking about building technology or investing in technology in the long-term rental market. It's like there's 60 million long-term rentals, but like the behavior and the buying habits and the needs of the companies that operate, large institutional multifamily portfolios where their properties are several hundred units compared to like the smaller properties, offsite managed, duplexes, triplexes, 8plexes, et cetera, single family homes. Like they're fundamentally different companies, even though the asset is still a long-term rental with 4 walls and a roof, and the underline is kind of the same thing.